On the blue side, G2 on the red already. Rakan, Syndra removed. G2 will take away the Pantheon and Kiana.
Now, I'm so interested to see because, when Mage bot was really popular in Korea and Yasuo bot and all these kind of atypical bot lanes, I was always most impressed with Viper. I think he's such an incredible flexible player. He's very good mechanically, and we've seen some of the LCK teams already at Worlds bring out some of these non-standard bots. So are you expecting that today?
Look, heavily removed from his champion pool has been those picks in 2019. Tried to make his name on an AD carry. People kind of pigeonholed and said, oh, he can only play those awesome dudes, as we call it on the LCK stream, the non-AD carry picks. Now, I want to actually draw attention to specifically the Quinn ban in Korea. Khan showed us that the pocket ban to top lane Renekton is the Quinn. So the moment the Quinn came in, first pick Renekton was guaranteed. And this is actually the duo I expect a Dumb One Gaming to lock in every time. Renekton Talia. It's like Renekton Elise, but you land that first stun, the shove's easy, and people die fast.
Yeah, Renekton has been having so much priority, in a lot of scrims these days because it is flexible mid, top. It is very good in a lot of the popular champions in the early game. Things like the Aurelia has very preferential matchups, as well as that incredible setup, as you're talking about, for champions such as this Talia.
It's that auto 2v2 win where you don't even care which champions the enemy took. You know that if they come from the fog of war and one stun, you should say, leads to another, someone's dead. So it's very powerful in such a 2v2-centric meta. Rolling through the picks here, things seem pretty clear, but actually the Leona is not actually a response to a Rakan in this particular game.
A response to the Nautilus in that bottom lane. Alongside that, G2 very quickly pigeonholing themselves into a traditional AD carry. Perkz, one of the players that really started bringing mages in the bottom lane onto the world stage. Well, in game one, he's going to be on that Kai'Sa.
I think also somewhat a response a bit to this Talia. It is a champion that gives you access from the support role to actually dive back onto this champion. We've already seen, Nautilus taken away for that kind of guaranteed engage. And if you can hit the Solar Flare onto a Talia, this is a champion that puts out a lot of damage but can also die instantly.
I kind of look at it and say, they're saying, all right, you've got this Renekton Talia, that's pretty scary, probably in the top lane. How about we have Elise Leona and make the reverse map plays and get 2 kills for 1? So real chance they'll be making a pitch like that.
Banning out AD carries that have that bit of safety as well.
Yeah.
Xayah with the feather.
They're going bot, guys.
Jump away.
They're going
bot lane is the focus for G2. Twisted Fate and Gangplank, the bans from Griffin.
And it raises the question again, do you go to something a little bit less standard? Do you step away from those marksmen? I have been hearing and seeing in solo queue a lot of mages played. Even things like Heimerdinger has been getting practiced a lot, and would be pretty interesting to see something like that come out.
The last notable non-AD carry that Viper played was Talia, amusingly, in that Talia Pantheon duo way back in the spring finals. We don't like to think about that one too much. It was a bit embarrassing.
Yeah, the Pantheon Talia certainly did not work out.
He's found a dashy champion anyway. We'll go for the Lucian here, but of course the range discrepancy definitely makes him a little bit more honest. Very easy, actually, to get caught in something like the Shockwave when you try to walk up.
Yeah, and certainly some of these kind of lane-dominant Lucian lanes in the LCK hadn't always been as effective because the LCK kind of played it slower. They weren't always snowballing, always pushing the advantages, and tended to get outscaled and outperformed by some of these later game champions, such as the Kai'Sa.
Quite like this Aurelia last pick, still leaves some flexibility for Chovy and Sword with the Renekton.
Okay.
And it's going to be Ornn for Wonder in the top lane. Waited all the game to lock it in. And that Forge God will be going up top.
I mean, they have some early game here on G2 when you're looking over at the Elise, but as far as a 5v5 teamfighting composition, this is incredible scaling from G2 between the Ornn for the engages alongside that Leona. You have the Kai'Sa and the Orianna as kind of this backline that is going to be very, very consistent and high damage. And when I look at Griffin, this is mid-early game, brawling, getting on top of your opponents and snowballing the game. And we have to see, can they do that against the MSI champions?
2v2's top side, very scary for G2. Remember, the shield is no longer there for the trades on the Ornn, so you're going to take a lot of pain. And we've already noted, though, that G2 want to play bot side. Those battle lines are drawn. I tend to agree with you, Zale, in the fact that the mid to short range of Griffin against all this G2 engage. Kai'Sa can choose a moment. That sounds really bad in the 5v5 sense. However, get enough kills on the top side, play a 3-lane game. Chovy's Aurelia is effortlessly elegant to watch. He is really exquisitely talented on this pick, and he's going to have to get going. Orianna wants to dodge lane. Honestly, Ornn kind of does as well.
Both teams looking to open their bank account here at Worlds. We'll see who can take the win in this first game. And on to Summoner's Rift we make our way. Griffin, a team usually slower, one of the lowest combined kills a minute in the LCK at 0.57, playing against the team that revolutionized early pressure, early fights, lots of actions across the Rift. And I think we would both, well, I would say here, seeing G2 on a slower composition is surprising.
Yeah, the battle lines have been drawn just kind of like our previous game, guys. When it comes to timers here, not quite as tight for Griffin because their side lane play can get them a lot of advantage, not a Rumble outscale scenario. However, very much looking for them to make those first moves. And it's been a meta at Worlds that has been defined by the scaling team getting their time and getting through rather than the early aggression being as prioritized in the winning teams.
And I think that these kinds of games are so interesting for me because it can kind of establish going forward. Is we look back at sometimes the previous metas and people in the Ardent Censor day, for example, we had all these scaling bot lanes and people said, no, you can't play aggressive until we saw the LPL teams bring out Caitlyn and push up the pressure and end the games before their opponents were able to actually do anything about it. And that is really want to kind of check in and see here from Griffin. Can you push the pace and really punish these kind of scaling compositions that we have been seeing kind of run rampant thus far at Worlds?
Of course, have the data there to remind our viewers that Griffin have got it done the regular season, but so frequently fallen off in playoffs. And one of the responses here has not been discussed is that Sword is the surprising top lane starter in this particular game. Hasn't played since the first game of the second round robin in July, so a long time ago. He is usually their shot calling tank top laner. He's most known for making those big TP plays on the Renekton. He'll be able to do some lane dominating as well. As Tarzan gets a visit from Caps.
Yeah, and Caps actually resets that, which is going to slow this down a little bit. And if it wasn't already obvious from you calling it out in draft, clearly Griffin wants to play topside. They're splitting the map, the early invade to get the vision, starting on G2's red buff. It's also PTA on the Renekton, so that is less about the scaling. Ornn is going to be building armor, so Conqueror is considered very effective later on, but PTA is more burst for the early game, and Caps here with Jankos, and they cannot actually chase after this, knowing that Griffin kind of have control of that top side.
Every camp that is contested by G2, some damage comes in on both lanes.
Jovi's going to be chipped down in the mid lane as well, as Jankos just tries to get the push for Caps in this mid lane.
But every camp that's contested makes it so it's later that Tarzan will turn to his own jungle. It also means that everything's pretty clear here for Perkz and Mickey to play aggressively on the bot side. So G2 seem to have read the same spoilers that we have. We caught it in draft. They did as well. So now everything pretty comfortable on the Rift, the side of G2.
Seen both of the junglers playing around Vision early on. Tarzan was spotted on a couple of wards up in that red side jungle, which made it a lot easier for Wunder to play safe. He could back underneath the tower. Now we see Jankos going in, taking away the red buff, and maybe looking towards mid.
And I mean, it's a small thing, but I love the little move from Caps harassing at the Raptors. I love that Wunder is also harassing, at those golems, because this is allowing Jankos to actually outpace. And here he is again, just trying to harass Chovy in that mid lane.
That's beautiful.
Nice double stun there.
That is so good from Chovy. Yes, they were just walking at him, but you had to line it up like that. It's absolutely great.
Offside.
Wunder has already used the Bella's Breath, going to try and get underneath the tower. Tarzan won't be able to land the seismic shove as of yet, but does still have it. Wunder, you can see, trying to sidestep.
Yeah, and a little bit out of sync there, not actually saving the stun for the Talia seismic shove, but they are trying to actually zone Wunder off this turret. And you can see on the minimap they're successfully doing it well. G2 go bot.
Cocoon landing, Lehend splashes under the tower. Mickey did land the stun, but it's flash for flash in that bottom lane.
On strong sides, there are trades, no one dies, but Summoners going down, specifically for Lehend, means that the next Zenith Blade might be a death sentence for Griffin's support.
And thus far, it really has been the kind of the trade, right? And Tarzan is just basically laning up here. They're trying to threaten Wunder and keep him off of his farm as much as possible. Going to be able to grab an early plate here. And yes, Jankos has gotten a farm advantage, but there's no bot lane advantage because Jankos hasn't really been able to make anything too much happen with that pressure. And this has got to be frustrating for Wunder, but not giving up his summoner, not giving up his life. I think he's holding on very well on this weak side.
Not giving up experience as well. Is at level 5. Sword flashes away from Cocoon, but Jankos can still chase in. Sword puts a lot of damage down with Ruthless Predator, but Wunder's on the chase, and First Blood comes to G2 in Berlin.
There was that window to try to punish on the top side. They knew Tarzan had left, and Jankos coming to first first relieve pressure, and then he does it in the best way possible by picking up the kill.
And this is where you start to feel that game plan falling apart for Griffin. Tarzan with 2v1 laning up here against Wonder. Wonder surviving everything. G2 know they have it, flashing in, able to finish him off, and now the CS lead is really meaning nothing when you get that first blood over on Wonder.
And Sword returning to the professional game for the first time in a few months is caught in a spot he's not as used to playing. Point I didn't get to is that seeing Tarzan go top was something we never saw from Griffin in their successful times. Usually, Sword's on an island. This island's about to be invaded.
Wonder's level 6. He's got the Forge God on his side. Sword trying to get away, but here comes the Ram, and there goes the kill. Wonder has 2.
That was so well executed. Right as Wonder is hitting 6 off that minion, Jankos is already there, landing the cocoon, setting up. They know Sword has no flash, so when he uses the slice to escape, the call of the Forge God is guaranteed to connect, and that ensures his death.
Level 5 on the Renekton, no extra health on the Dominus to make these extra turret shots matter. And this might just mean that Renekton is going to be outpaced in terms of armor compared to his damage stacking for the entire game. Remember, the latest buff means that those extra team items come earlier, so now level 12 is the critical number for Wonder.
And you can see the difference between the two junglers. They talked about it on the analyst desk. Jankos, the one who's active in the early game. He's the one who's been on point so far this game. Perkz had to flash away. There's the Zenith Blade. Lehen still doesn't have his flash from that earlier fight, and Jankos is on the board. He gets his first kill of the game. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Chovy's going to pop down the Vanguard's edge, but Cap's just able to walk away.
Yeah, he has the support from the rest of his squad, so it's not a play that Chovy can continue the chase on. And G2, another unanswered kill there. And you talked about the armor. Also, again, remember, this is press the attack Renekton. This is not the Conqueror to help actually deal with that additional armor that's going to be built up. And G2 is just handling this early game masterfully.
We are definitely seeing the Griffin teething problems they've had since summer. Moment Perkz flashes out, there's plenty of people to come in and pick up the kill here, but the lack of synergy with Tarzan from his lanes when Sword used to be the standard top lane. They go mid and transfer that lead. Here's Tarzan.
This is dangerous for Wonder. He's already gone into the fight, has no flash. He's just trying to get underneath the tower. Sword should be able to take this one. It's actually the shutdown going over to Tarzan.
4th, 5th time's the charm. Finally get that kill up top, but is it already too late to get the sort of split map advantages that they were looking for? It's so atypical for Tarzan to put 4 or 5 ganks into Sword, but they're trying to roll with the times. Feels like G2 is still in control.
Still pretty big kill there onto Wonder. Had no vision on that top side. You can see all the wards from Griffin, so being that far up is always risky. He does get punished, and you have to remember, this is a death without TP, and those are always going to hurt you a lot more. This is going to be, multiple waves actually denied to the turret, another turret plate going the way of Sword, so while the early game certainly has gone bad for Griffin, this is doing some triage.
But the issue is, it's Ornn, right? And he did lose his laning shield to take great trades at all times, but he's still a pretty low econ top laner that's about giving gold to your allies from level 13 onwards with those free items. So that issue is the 2 kills make up for 20 CS advantage. Renekton didn't pick up the kill. Renekton is not going to be a damage threat onto Ornn most likely at any point in this game, and then Ornn starts setting him up for the team to smack him down.
You've got Ornn in a position where he can survive this lane now. That's the important thing for Wonder in the top lane. Yes, he'll be behind in CS. Yes, he may get pressured under his tower, but it opens up Jankos to play into other lanes instead of having to focus on top.
Exactly. It was never about just having a little bit of pressure on him. It was about destroying him. It was about killing him so many times that the Renekton is running over the game, and certainly Griffin nowhere close to that, and G2 sitting in such a good position. And when you look down at that bot lane as well, this is really reminding me a lot of the LCK games I have watched with Lucian, where it is just farm it out, no real aggressive plays, not a lot of pressure happening onto that other side. And when you're sitting here as G2 and you're thinking, all right, we have a Kai'Sa at 90 CS, a Lucian at 88, you are feeling so damn good about that situation going forward.
And that was the Griffin that we didn't like to see. In the losing streak that Griffin went on, they just farmed it out, and then they weren't actually the team fighting gods they were last year and in spring season. They couldn't find that next level of execution, the wordless communication being trumpeted. And this is a game where it's set up to fail with just how much team fight advantage in the 5v5 is on the side of G2. And we already know that Renekton's not going to be a dominant side laner. while Chovy, predictably, keeping up the CS. No lead over Orianna. And for now, at least, G2 invading heavily on the red side jump.
Griffin are the first team to go for the swap up towards the top side. Wonder's going to try and clear out the wave with the Call of the Forge God. Swords had to retreat beneath his bottom lane tower. And G2 looking just to chip away at this one. But you can see Griffin getting the Rift Herald on top side. Tarzan has the number on his opposite man. In fact, he knows Jankos is down towards bot. Flawless Duet is going to land in the mid lane. The shockwave from Caps really doesn't do too much. Doesn't even have a completed item yet. Here goes Chovy. Lands the Vanguard's edge as Caps splashes away. And Chovy on Irelia. You said it, Papa. That was beautiful.
So important that he hit the ultimate there. That was the reason that was able to take down one. He gets out as well. 1 for 0. Solo manufactured by Chovy.
Yeah, that is huge there for Griffin. And Caps, I think, was trying to anticipate the ultimate with that early flash, expecting that it was about to come out, but perhaps misreading the animations, thinking it was flying out when it wasn't. And Chovy able to hold the ultimate till after the summoner, guaranteeing that it would land and allowing him to have that outplay.
And it felt like Jankos baited that a bit by walking up because he didn't need to. He'd already gotten out his top side.
Wonder still has the flash. The Weaver's wall will be broken, but Wonder will fall. Tarzan, his second kill of the game. They have the Rift Herald. They're chipping away at this top lane tower. Griffin have got right back into this game.
G2 had a lot of advantages there. If they hadn't made the play in mid, we already know the weak side top laner of Ornn was going to wave here way better than the Renekton. Instead, they've actually upped the pace of the game, G2, and not like the results at all.
Yeah, certainly haven't, but the gold lead closing a little bit. G2 still just needing to calm down a little bit here and regroup. They're in a good spot and certainly still in control of this game, but Irelia in the side lane definitely is one of these situations where you can take over, and you can see Caps flashing, anticipating where the ultimate would go, but Chovy still had it on target, and landing that ultimate for the Q reset is what allowed him to have that little bit of extra damage to kind of push him over the edge and finish off Caps.
Looking at some of the stats here, don't necessarily do justice to Chovy when it comes to kills assist. Of course, we already noted how low action these early games are for the side of Griffin, but not since Faker debuted has there ever been a laner like Chovy who came in as a rookie and at 17 already was cool, calm, and collected and didn't seem awed by big stages. The only best of 5 Griffin has ever won of note was their semi-final against Afrika last summer. To qualify for that final, they lost to KT, and it was off the heroics of their 17-year-old mid laner. So can be calm in big moments, and getting a solo kill when they did against MSI champions G2, that's a pretty big moment.
It certainly is, and while Faker is undoubtedly the much bigger name, Chovy, I think it's fair to say, outperformed him in the regular season. Faker certainly, was getting, as you talked about earlier, we were talking about this earlier today, Faker had been getting solo killed, had been getting knocked down, and Chovy was one of those mid laners that had been performing so well against him.
It was out of lane in summer where he wasn't able to transfer his leads nearly as well as in the past. As mid lane,
Dragon Jet's used, but the Cocoon comes in straight away. There's the Call of the Forge God from the side as well. Wonder just using that to disengage. And for the moment, not too much more will happen. 10 seconds on a Cloud Drake in the top lane. Alex is trying to clear out the wave after the tower falls.
Yeah, I think just denying the local gold there, accepting that turret was already going to go down. So he's making the call to allow that turret to deny, that gold away instead of just waiting and keeping it up a little bit more. This is not the mid-tier one. This is not as important of a turret there. So I think it makes sense, deny a little bit of gold away from
Deny a bit of CS as well, that it falls onto to the tower. Jankos going to look for the second dragon of the game here for G2. They have a 700 gold lead coming up to the 14-minute mark. First completed items across the board. Manamune on Perks, Ludens on Caps. Is the Black Cleaver for Sword first, and the Blade of the Ruined King for Viper.
No completed items yet. Onto the Irelia, still working on it with the Hex Drink. Very respectful. The pressure that Elise can put down, but G2 had that control of the bot side. They've owned the red side jungle of Griffin for a lot of this game, ever since it was, of course, the vertical jungling set up by that late invade by Tarzan, taking the enemy red from the start. And we pull back and say the G2 have definitely picked up the turret plate lead. They've got the 1200 gold lead, and we're not even to level 12, where the invisible lead of the Ornn items and already the scaling lead we've gone over multiple times kick into full effect.
You can see, though, Wonder is falling behind just a little bit in terms of experience. He's a level behind Sword, has been spending a lot of time just hanging around mid, only getting a third of the XP perhaps that he usually would. He'll catch this bottom wave, but with the Rift Herald pushing in, he might not be able to stay there for too long.
Yeah, and that's kind of the question, right? We have been seeing Griffin continuously pressure him. He died up on the top side. Talia, constantly pressuring throughout the game. And Griffin even, looking to potentially set up an angle here for that Talia ultimate if he were to overstep. They are roaming down Lehens, but this is going to be called off, I believe, as G2 starts to move down to protect their top laner.
Griffin have to be careful here. Notice that there's no teleport on Chovy, and he went topsides mid lane.
Solar flare coming down. Lehens is just deleted. Disappears off the face of Summoner's Rift, and now G2 are looking to push in mid as 4.
Yeah, they want more, and that is support Nautilus without Aftershock proc. You just get lit up there. And G2 getting this turret very, very low. Sword over the wall here, pops his ult.
But they're chasing Chovy up towards the top side. The Cocoon's going to land. Mickey looking to come in from the side. He's locked in with Weaver's wall. Caps and Perks will be there to keep him safe. Griffin cannot react, and all much ado about nothing there as G2 just take the mid lane tower.
Yeah, pretty unfortunate for Griffin as Sword was expecting G2 to dive forward, and that is why he pre-popped the ultimate to go for it, and now Chovy in a 1v3 situation has to get out of there.
Hit still, Chovy does have flash, he's underneath the tower, and G2 respect the Aurelia, won't go for the dive.
While G2 showed the respect, it was Lehens walking up in an area where they had no control when their mid laner couldn't teleport to mid. It was top lane wave clearing. Unnecessary. Try to contest vision there. That's why G2 knew there was going to be no answer to their burst combo. They take the turret up top side. The map control is starting to go the way of the MSI champions and European hopefuls.
And you can see G2 usually high in combined kills a minute, usually double what Griffin are at. This game has been slow. 7 kills in 16 minutes, much more at the pace that Griffin would be comfortable with.
Yet, exactly what G2's composition wants, Medic. They have drafted a comp that isn't about injecting a lot of gold and getting a Kali, a Gunblade, and getting going with a Trinity Force. This is very much, keep it simple, calm down, chill out, and things will line up. And yes, it's a different look, but even though the stats are flipped, they'll take it in this particular game.
Yeah, they're certainly going to be feeling good about it. Even when you're looking over at this Lucian, this is not the Essence Reaver into IE, but looking more towards late game. This is going to be Black Cleaver second with the Blade of Rune King, very focused on this 2-item spike. And that is where I'm expecting Griffin to try to start getting aggressive. I think this is the window where they're going to have to try to play around when you have Triforce on your Aurelia, when you have 2 items on your Lucian, and when you hit that Shojin here on Renekton. I think that's about their best chance. Relative to the power that G2 is going to have the rest of the game.
And while a lot of the fans around the world are obviously very sad they're not seeing a super bloody game like G2 is known for, you know who's the happiest person right now? It's definitely Grabs, the coach of G2 down the back. And the reason why I say that is he knows his team has been over-fighting, drafting Garen because certain casters are guesting in the LEC and doing other crazy stuff. He's really kind of been concerned that they're just going to keep fighting at all times. This was a draft that needed to take time, that needed to build up. They couldn't just take every single skill test that was sent their way. But all full credit to G2. They've understood their role. They know where they're strong. They're taking their time. And this is definitely a stock that's going to peak after a couple of weeks of waiting.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this is a G2 that is looking calm, collected, very impressive here for Game 1 of Worlds. We already know how aggressive they can play and that they can really turn up the tempo if needed. But, when you can show this sort of a measured, calm style of gameplay as well, then really you have the flexibility to do it all.
What we're learning is they're beautiful and sensitive. That's the duo right there.
Perks maybe overstepped a little bit here. Knocked back across the wall, right into the waiting arms of Sword. And we've been bigging up G2, we've been talking about how they're patient, but Griffin aren't exactly the same right now. They're not over-forcing, they're finding picks where they can.
First time that they've tried to push too far and been punished, so nicely done by Griffin. What can they turn it into? Mountain Drake spawning in 5 seconds. Remember, Perks has no TP.
Tarzan doesn't have the Weaver's Wall, of course, but as you say, the Mountain Drake should be the target here for Griffin. That bot lane tower may fall as well, but all of Griffin group up. Sword still pushing in the top lane, so it's only 4 players from the LCK representatives taking down this Mountain Drake.
Yeah, you can see pings over to that Griffin blue buff, so G2 never intending to actually challenge here with Perks going down. They will just steal away this blue buff here for Caps and accept that small loss after what was a beautiful Weaver's Wall from Tarzan to kind of just scoop Perks into the opposing team. And You know, he is spotted out on this ward. He is very deep going for this and just kind of gets booped over the wall, right into the arms of Sword.
And see, and it actually went, as you say, over the fattest part of the wall into the blue buff. That was unlikely. He was like 0.1 Teemos away from actually being over the halfway point and making it out scot-free.
Yeah, he certainly was. But I do like the restraint from Perks. Once you get knocked over, hold on to the summoners, right? I think that you are pretty doomed in that situation. So holding on to the summoners, holding on to the ultimate, it is one kill. It is the Mountain Dragon, but not the end of the world here for G2. And Orin already having upgraded his first item. You know, every one of these is worth around like 1,000 extra gold or so. You know, it's very, very valuable as far as that scaling goes.
And while Mountain Drake is a Drake that we always talk about the value in taking Baron, the Baron speed there, the thing for Griffin is if they ever try to start a neutral and G2 are able to walk up as 5, they are going to get CC'd and die. They cannot actually use Mountain Drake to take neutrals, because the moment you group up, something's got to give, something's got to hit.
Chovy trying to fight here, but he's going to get the brittle passive on him, knocking him back. Jankos trying to join the fight. Here comes the call of the Purgoch, straight into the shockwave, and Caps takes down Chovy. Sword's going to chase down here as Jankos forced off towards the bottom side of the fight. Will flash the wall, the cocoon doesn't connect, and Caps is trying to usher Jankos out of the battle. But here comes Mickey, here comes Sword, here comes Viper. Double kill for Sword, but the Perks is on the chase. Viper's going to fall as well, and G2 continue to collapse. They continue to push forward. It's a double for Perks in the bottom lane. Perks will not chase in with a killer instinct, actually already used it in the fight.
Yeah, G2 collapse and they get multiple kills there. They're still looking for the dive.
Mickey diving onto left.
Oh!
Already is down. Didn't even need the might of the sun to slay him. G2 find 4 in the bottom lane, and they will push in this tower.
Absolutely wiping Griffin off the map there. Such a well-played team fight. Caps faster on the TP and utilizing his self-ultimate as well as the ball you'll watch here to buy so much time and really delay the fight, because this initial fight, and we are in this what's your move replay here presented by Axe, and we can see the TP arrives, the initial shockwave, as well as the zoning with the ball here from Caps is really what buys a lot of time to keep Jankos alive and allow the rest of G2 to come down.
This play was just so removed from the allies. It took so long for the cavalry to arrive from both sides. But what you'll notice as the game goes on is that even though Perks has to flash away from Tarzan, he's then isolated from the rest of the action. So many members of Griffin just can't get to the fight at all, and the numbers advantage is felt. None more so than the life bar. Watch this. He's at 90% health, then he's at none.
Yeah, that is just absurd. I think that's just the Kaisa passive being procced there. And he just got absolutely exploded, but pretty bold decision from Griffin, you have to say, trying to defend that turret, knowing that Mickey is looking for that wraparound. He was spotted on a ward going through the jungle, and Griffin trying to hold on there ends up just giving away another kill, another tower, and G2 now getting full control of this Baron area. It is Chovy splitting on the bottom side of the map. He does have his teleport, and there is only a teleport on Wonder, but he's not here, so G2 either have to respond or try to force elsewhere.
Well, they're trying to get vision control around this blue buff. Something Griffin have done well is getting Chovy into a side lane, getting him that farm, keeping him up with Caps 225 to 233. But Caps now has the upgraded Luden's Echo. 2 upgraded items on Wonder from that Ornn. It's a G2 very powerful right now, about 3,000 gold ahead.
Yeah, 2 on himself, 1 on the Orianna. You'll notice that the evolution is there as well. So we're talking another casual 3,000 plus gold of gold lead here. So G2 have an excellent Baron taking comp. They can turn amazingly to S tier in every way. Is G2 around the Baron? They start putting down control wards, and Chovy's probably going to have to TP early to help his team. Otherwise, this Baron could be vacated quite quickly.
I mean, we have seen how quickly some of these guys can get burst down. I mean, there's no one on Griffin that can face check. And Mickey is actually just zoning here. And this is very likely just a free Baron here for G2.
G2 just sneak it right under their noses. Griffin cannot react in time. G2 secured the Baron 24 minutes in. They can now look to push in this midway.
I mean, who was supposed to check for Griffin, right? Lehens dies instantly. Who else is supposed to go up there? Tarzan? He can't do it. So G2 just strangled him out and potentially looking for the dive here. If Griffin didn't back off, but they will, and G2 in full control.
5-man trust for or nothing. We got the nothing Azael, and thus the Baron on the side of G2. Trying to buy time, but Ornn can open that little crevice through the Weaver's wall.
Wonder taking down the wall in the mid lane, but G2 will not push any further. Still a tier 2 in the top lane for them to turn to, and Griffin now have to look for a way back into this game because more and more it's becoming apparent that G2 are willing to play patient and just wait for those singular moments.
And needs a really big mistake now from the side of Griffin. They hold all the cards, sorry, from the side G2 for Griffin, they hold all the cards to G2. The Oran Horn under the turret, just to zone people should be enough.
This is actually so interesting. It looks like Chovy is going for a Shojin on Aurelia. That is not something I have actually seen. You know, it could be pretty effective in the 1v1 if you can actually weave in a lot of autos, perhaps, but it's very atypical unless he is really going for like multiple things at the same time here, such as like a Spirit Visage and a GA, but Yanko's starting this up, and they are kind of lying in wait here. Perkz is split from the team, so he has to be somewhat careful.
Is Perkz split or is Sword split? The Dominus coming out. Here's the call of the Forge God. It lands. Perkz jumps straight onto the back line, and already the damage is coming out. The Shockwave dodged away from Viper, still alive. Nikki has to go golden to tank it up. Lehen's almost falling as well.
Sword
to go down, and here comes Sword straight onto the back line, but Jankos pops his stopwatch, keeps himself alive. Sword responds with one of his own, but in the end he will fall. And now Griffin are running to the wrong side of the map. G2 will chase them down. It's a double for Caps. Viper trying to dash away, but he will not escape today. Perkz is on a rampage. G2 are cleaning up Griffin. You can see in the bush, trying to hide, is Tarzan. He's used to the jungle, but Wonder knocks him up, and Tarzan goes down as well. 4-1 in favor of the LEC champions.
A fool's errand to try to answer G2's team fights at this point in the game. The champions did all the talking. They can stop a minion wave. Actually needs another minion wave, Caps, to break the base here, but they've definitely broken the hearts of Griffin.
They certainly have, but you have to give some credit to Griffin for trying and not just allowing this game to be bled out. But G2 certainly more than ready to answer that. The engage really being shown off here between Mickey and Wonder. As they go through that corridor, Griffin just got torn apart.
Honestly, the pick ban in hindsight tore them apart as well, because against a team that doesn't do too much in the early game, why not just take the free out scale? It's not the G2 standard way, but it's a very smart way, and it's how they usually play. Here's the call of the Forge God.
Only lands onto Lehen's, more of a disengage tool than anything else. Sword was trying to get him from the side, but the cocoon hits, so does the Sword of Flare. Wonder now needs to get out, but Lehen's lands the hook. The Vanguard's dead from Chovy on the backline, looking for the damage, but Perkz has gone in. He's dived forward, and Chovy goes down. And now it's a 5v4 in favor of G2. They're trying to retreat, they're trying to get out, and Sword won't be able to get him from the side. The Shockwave doesn't connect, and G2 will manage to survive.
Yeah, G2, massive Baron power play here. They can reset, they can spend that gold. They know they are in full control, so no reason to risk a turnaround there from Griffin, and you can see these buys coming through. They are just getting stronger and stronger. Here it is one more time. Griffin looking to get the jump on Perkz. Sword sneaking around, but it just ends up being G2 that are quicker to the play. This engage, shredding them in that corridor, and now Sword, who was looking for the flank, is so far away from the play because Perkz was able to use his ultimate to join, he can't even get there.
Who's flanking who was the question. It turns out the Sword flanked himself. They need everyone at the same timer. Otherwise, this is going to be the inevitability. Aurelia able to escape. No one else really on the side of Griffin, so we reload again. The gold lead hasn't grown much, again around just over 7,000 gold, but those Ornn items continue to come in, and it feels like G2 are just short of dotting some I's and crossing some T's.
And the real question, you know, in a game like this, when you're looking at a comp that outscales, is really how far ahead did Griffin have to be to win this game, right? And if you're talking 5,000, 6,000 gold, when you're down 7K, you are 12,000, 13,000 gold away from where you needed to be. And that is where it really sinks in how far ahead G2 is.
Griffin may look for a final fight. The ult comes out from Ornn, dodged away from Viper. Tarzan puts down the wall behind him, and Sword has now popped the ult. Looking for the engage here on the Renekton, but that inhibitor's almost fallen. G2 take it, that's the second of the game. Top and mid have fallen, and Griffin only have one inhib left alive.
Sword's ult's gonna expire.
Just unable to find the fight, unable to find his connection.
For context, it lasts 15 seconds, so that's actually surprising that it was able to expire before any fight happened, but Call of the Forge God used like an AP Grog Assault to just get people away from the objective to continue to stack them up. Now they're just going for the chase and that final inhibitor.
Do it by the numbers. G2 for the final inhib, then the Nexus towers have to be the target.
Oh!
Shockwave, the solar flare, and Griffin lose 2 in a heartbeat. That's 3. Make it 4, make it more. G2 scream as they look for the Nexus towers. G2, 3 inhibs down, are pushing in for the win, and Griffin can do nothing about it. They catch Lehen's Viper dash flashes away. They'll get on towards the fountain and survive for the moment, but G2 don't care about the kills. They're looking for the win. G2 will announce their stake in Worlds with a convincing win over the LCK's Griffin. In the end, they will take the Nexus and they will go 1-0 in their group.
Cool, calm, calculated by the side of G2 Esports. They looked at a team that was slow in the early game and said, we'll stick with you. They were actually ahead of Zale, and honestly, when I saw those 2 kills go on to the Renekton, I thought, okay, the Renekton plan ain't working. The topside plan already looking a little bit shaky, and while the Aurelia play continued to be exquisite, the gameplay around it wasn't, and G2 found it all too easy.
They certainly did. Griffin, so much commitment to that top side, really got nothing from it, and that is where so much of the game hinged. But you have to question this all-in early game style that Griffin were drafting for when they are a team that is known for passivity. And G2 played them like a fiddle, dominating start to finish right through the draft to the end of the game.
Production want to call in my MVP vote for Grabs. You are the MVP of this game. Fantastic draft on the day. Love it.
Oh, it's great stuff from Grabs. He has been teased in the past, perhaps for some of his
the Soraka
a little
top?
bit more eccentric drafts, but G2 knew exactly what they needed to do. They drafted around what Griffin would draft in, and then played a style that shut down Griffin in the early game.
And now I actually feel greedy, because